Right, well, welcome one and all. Thank you, Pratty. I'm glad it's better, so hopefully that will stay. So I'll just move it from there to here, and it shouldn't move anywhere. Hear my heart beating with the passion that I have for York and you guys. So, fabulous. So, welcome to York. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You're welcome joining me here in York today. We're going to have a nice walk around the city in the lovely early evening sunshine. We're going to point out a few lovely sights and hopefully tell you a little bit of history. Any questions, of course, I'll do my best to answer them. Hello, Cheryl. Good to see you. Fresh from your surfing expeditions. So without further much ado about nothing. There could be plenty of nothing on that. I thought we'd start today at one of the favourite sites for everybody in York. And historically, of course, the first site that would have greeted you of this mighty city. You can only imagine sort of coming up from London, 4 days, travel by coach in the 18th century, so infinitely longer in the time when this was built. But that finally you'd arrive here at the gates of the city. The gates actually would have been a little bit further out, more about where this kind of, the line is there, just in front of the cyclists. The Barbican would have been there, but put that to one side. This would have been your first sight of the mighty city of York. And I think it really is a pretty splendid course of the royal entrance to the city. So to this day, when the monarchs come out, and I've heard King Charles and Queen Camilla visiting again later this year, so I'll try and do another live stream with them. I'll chat to the council, see if we can't get a good position, and I'll bring you that live. But basically, this is the royal entrance of what was historically York's kind of second city. So that's kind of city, the history of the city had been very much kind of defined by it being of strong interest to the crown. So to this day, obviously the monarch's second son is the Duke of York. So that gives us a kind of a clue, doesn't it, as to how important that kind of role is, that relationship is between the crown and its second city. Now, obviously, in terms of material terms, now in terms of economically and so forth, population-wise, it's nowhere near York's second city. It's probably about England's 30th city. But it has that sort of ceremonial importance. We've got the crest here, recently restored, of King Henry VII, who came here, of course, after the War of the Roses had concluded at the Battle of 1485, where Richard III, who'd also spent a great deal of time in York, was slain. So Henry VII came here, and because York had backed those wicked Plantagenets, the White Rose contingent, then they had a bit of sucking up to do. So when he came here, as he passed through the gate there with his wife, who was actually the Lady of York, whose name just escapes me just for a minute, it'll come back to me, for whom the rose window is dedicated, they showered him with red and white rose petals in a way to try and demonstrate really that the countries are unified after this kind of disastrous 30 years of royal squabbling. But so there we go. So throughout the medieval period then, and of course in the period before that, the period of the Romans, Viking occupation, Norman occupation, York was all about strategic control of the north. You look at a map of the British Isles, and you'll see that on the eastern side, which is obviously the side that faces France and the continent, Italy and so forth, then there is two major estuaries. Estuaries are important because they are deep water ports, which, of course, what deep water port means is you can bring the big ships in. So you can bring military vessels in and you build your defences around them. So there's two main ways via estuary into this country. In the south, the Thames estuary, at Kent, of course, leading to London, the Thames. And the one in the north is the Humber estuary, which leads up to the River Ouse and York, about kind of 40 miles away from here. So consequently, it was the strategic position, geographically, first spotted, of course, by the Romans, but consolidated and updated by subsequent settlers, invaders, colonisers, whatever you call them, the Vikings, Saxons, Normans. So that was the first sort of slab, the first sort of, probably 1800 years of York's history is based around its location. What drives the kind of the development of the next 200 years, what we're starting to look at now, the railways, is for exactly the same reason. That by sort of delightful accident of history, of geography rather, York lies pretty much halfway between Edinburgh and London, almost halfway in a sort of straight line. So of course what it did, it made it an absolute gimme in terms of transport stop-offs. So major stop-off in the coaching era, and then of course when the railways came, you know, it was an obvious place for a station. This was actually the second station in front of us, so we're going to have a walk through the station, which is always an absolute pleasure, be nice and cool. The first station I'll show you in a minute was on our kind of right-hand side. Over here is a building, the Railway Institute, which was a place where the railway workers would go and get their kind of education, their kind of social life and this, that and the other. Formerly it had been a pub, but the railway owners were very, very keen that railway workers wouldn't spend their time languishing in the public bars, spaffing their money away. So instead, it was brass bands, choral societies, sports clubs, you kind of name it, choirs and so forth. Amateur dramatics was a way of sort of taking that sort of positive kind of energy. So just kind of spanning down here, we're seeing the beginnings now of where the bridge has been removed from, and the scary walls. Yeah, is that Simone? I apologise if I get your name wrong there. Yeah, the nice times to come really are definitely in the spring, and September's beautiful. You can come in September. Obviously, the kids have gone back to school. It's got a lot quieter, but usually the sun shines. We often get better Septembers than August, which is make of that what you will. But yeah, that's definitely a time to visit. Everything looks great. Still lots of flowers and greenery, but of course, what we don't have is so many people. So this kind of looking down here, you can kind of see, I'm trying to lose my camera, a kind of terrace that they're creating at the bottom here. So I lost my gimbal there a second. To basically kind of shore up, because obviously this is a bridge here, and the bridge had been there for the best part of 150 years, and the walls had kind of got lazy and were leaning on it. So when they took out this bridge here to give more of a kind of flat plaza effect to the station, basically what they had to do is to shore up the walls to make sure they didn't have sort of lateral movements, that sort of slipping down, because obviously we're looking down over the walls there, so gravity would be, you know, absolute pain. Andrew's in York now, travelled from Ireland today, absolutely exhausted, looking forward to walking there. Well, Andrew, you know, if you spot us, you kind of see us, do come and say hello. Come and be on the camera. And whereabouts in Ireland are you from, Andrew? A lot of relatives in Ireland. So, you know, we're sort of seeing here, again, another perspective. So if you look down here, we're sort of more sort of public space, plaza, new bus stops going in and so forth. So I think it's kind of really lovely that, you know, York doesn't kind of stand still. But also this is the railway kind of shaping the kind of landscape, because this is now the kind of the new sort of station plaza. So for those that come by train, and it's a great way to come, you know, particularly if you're already in England. You're 2 hours from King's Cross and you're in the centre of York, you know, and the prices are okay. It's not too, you know, ridiculously priced. So what they're trying to do is create a really kind of nice sort of special way of entering the city, rather than just being constantly kind of jammed up with cars. A bit controversial over here, as you can imagine, because there are motorists that feel that they have the divine right to be where they like, drive where they like. They drive through the Minster, if you let them. Some of them, they're kind of pretty militant about the kind of rights of motorists, hate cyclists, and that kind of filth. So, you know, you've always got that kind of chorus of disapproval. County Wicklow, what a beautiful part of Ireland that is. So you've always got this kind of chorus of disapproval about anything that can involve change, promotes bus use, makes it easy for cycling, people in wheelchairs and so forth. You know, everything, if you look down, you know, is lovely and flat. As you'll know, the one thing about York is a lot of the road surfaces aren't really kind of flat. There's not a lot of uphill. We're pretty level at the bottom of a basin from a glacier. So there's no real issue with the gradients, but the road surfaces aren't necessarily that great for people with mobility issues. So, you know, putting in place around the public transport hubs, you know, kind of much improved public space, I think is great. I'm absolutely all for it. And I think it's a government grant, so I don't think it's costing us anything from kind of York's point of view. So coming into view now, obviously, the main bulk of the station. I think we're going to come down off the walls. We're going to go through the station because I wanted to talk about VE Day, and obviously that's something that will unite many of us on here. Will have had relatives, antecedents that have served during the 1939-45 conflict, the Second World War, as it was known. Certainly people from across the then British Empire and of course the United States as well. Irish troops, certainly in the First War. I'm not quite sure about the Second World War. I think by that stage, obviously, it was free Irish state. So probably Ulstermen, but unlikely to be many from County Wicklow. Andrew, obviously you're going to get a nice view of the Minster. So people often ask about whether York took much by way of damage in the air raids, the aerial bombing from the Luftwaffe during the war? The answer is fortunately not. But there was one night of bombing in April of 1922. And it's what's gone down in history to be known as the Baedeker raids. Certainly if you've ever heard of Baedeker, but they're a bit of a kind of a Rick Steves, Lonely Planet of its day. It kind of focused on taking rail actually around Europe and to go and see these historic, beautiful, medieval, unspoilt places. And one of them was a small, little, beautiful medieval town in northern Germany, whose name escapes me. It's going to be with L. Look, I'm thinking Lublin, but that's Poland. It'll come to me in just a minute. And during the anti-morale bombings, the RAF kind of changed tack, and they decided that what they were going to do, rather than just sort of bomb the industrial centre, go to Dusseldorf and the Ruhr and so forth, where they're encountering an awful lot of resistance and losses and so forth, is they would start targeting places that the Germans loved, just to make them kind of sick of the war, so that hopefully the German people start to put pressure on the German and Nazi leadership to kind of press for peace. That was the idea. And so they set up and bombed this beautiful town. It's annoying me, my brain is just not working very well, but it'll come to me. Or somebody look it up, Baedeker raids, and tell me. It begins with L, I think it's L-U, but as I say, all I've got in my head is Lublin, which is a place in Poland. And it's not that. Lübeck. So Lübeck in Germany was, and Hitler was incensed because Hitler had been there before the war. Of course, he was a painter, which is always that two elements of his personality, really hard to bring together. Also, a vegetarian. Animals were safe from Hitler. Nobody else was, seemingly. But so you've got this painter who's like, what on earth would you bomb Lübeck for? There's no value to it. There's no kind of garrison there. There's nothing of strategic value. And so he was so chewed off at what the RAF had done that he was incensed. And he got his Baedeker guide, or asked for a Baedeker guide, which obviously was talking, it's a German publication, talking about the kind of top sites to see in England. And he picked out Oxford. He think they were going to bomb the Radcliffe at Oxford, but he also thumbed through and found York. And so he ordered a battery of Luftwaffe, not a squadron rather, of Luftwaffe to come and do an air raid on York. The principal target, of course, being York Minster. So had they got their way, the German leadership, the Luftwaffe would have been reporting back on a successful raid and would have seen the Minster smashed and in flames. So obviously we're delighted that that didn't happen. But that is not to say that York got away scot-free. This was a very, very heavy kind of duty, heavily armed. It's the First War Memorial there to the railway workers that lost their lives in the First War. Obviously a mechanised war, railway came a great deal into use. So come the evening, obviously, to what degree the anti-aircraft batteries here in York were primed and ready for an attack that evening, whether it happened by chance and they were caught out, I'm not entirely sure. But nonetheless, they were able to send strafing fire. So fire that caused the artillery fire, this is of course, that caused the squadron to have to adjust their positions. So consequently, rather than be able to come in and drop their bombs over the Minster, they were pushed slightly to the south. And in doing so, then, the first few planes that came over dropped their bombs, and the first one hit both the Guildhall, and another bomb that was dropped from the same payload hit St Martin le Grand. So the church, you remember, that we went to with Reverend Liz Hassel on Coney Street, you remember? The church has got a big sort of section missing from the middle. So the Guildhall, of course, is the medieval hall where the Lord Mayor's, the council had their meetings. So pretty kind of historic places, but of course nothing by comparison to the shock value, if you like, the shock and awe of hitting the Minster. But of course, there's still a lot of the squadron have still got to deliver their kind of bombs, and consequently, the sort of strafing fire was pushing them further south, by now down towards the station. So the next wave of bombs in this evening fell down here and created a real kind of mess within the station. And of course, station bombs are particularly problematic, aren't they, or railway bombs, insofar as they destroy both kind of land and lines sort of simultaneously. So you've got, you know, a lot of kind of mayhem to kind of deal with. So a large portion of the station was completely destroyed. But there's a nice plaque that I'm going to show you. I may have showed you before. And funnily enough, it links this hotel here, which would have been called the Royal York at the time, but is now called the Milner. So I want you to remember that name, the Milner, because you're about to find out where the name comes from. So here we are now, walking back the other way towards the station, and I'm just going to take a sip of water, and then we'll tell you about Mr. Milner. So as the bombs began to drop and explode in this area, not just on the station but on the railway land as well, obviously kind of hitting the locomotives, tracks, the engine sheds and so forth, but also substantially the main part of the station itself. So you need to imagine that the roof's on fire, the alarm bells are ringing, the fire brigade, the home guard, ARP, the police, everybody is in attendance, because they've now got the station rafters coming down, and of course you've got people trapped under the masonry, under the burning kind of wood from the collapsing building. So a real kind of critical area. And into this railway worker by the name of Milner, whose first name we're going to find out in just a minute, he took it upon himself to go and access more supplies, deal with the injured, the burns, those that have taken substantial injuries as a result of this. And so his plaque is just over here. And a lovely station, of course, York. When it was built, the largest station anywhere in the world. Famous bridge scene there, Harry Potter on his way to Hogwarts in the very first film. Crosses the bridge there with Hagrid. So York, on that time, was a body double for King's Cross. So yeah, William Milner, that's it. So we see here now the plaque to the memory of William Milner. And it says here, look, station foreman, so the guy in charge, William Milner, a keen member of the LNER, London North East Railway, First Aid Movement, gave his life in an attempt to obtain a box of medical supplies urgently needed for treating air raid casualties. He entered a blazing building near this site at the height of the attack on the 29th of April 1942, which caused extensive damage to the station. When his body was found, he was still holding the box of first aid equipment, and Mr. Milner was posthumously awarded the King's Commendation for gallantry. So you can see a depiction there, obviously, of York Station having a huge hit, damage, see a train on the other side. So William Milner, we see, of course, the German planes up at the top. Make no mistake, we had done a huge amount of damage to Germany as well, so it wasn't simply a case of he's got one-sided, but he was born here in York in 1900 and he died in 1942. So there we go. So let's go up the should we go up the stairs and back down again, like the Grand Old Duke of York? We'll go up and go back down again, and I think we'll go over Scarf Bridge and we'll have a walk down the river, and I will see what catch eye down there. We'll challenge Catherine to do his reflection painting. You'll regret coming on this tour, Catherine. So a fabulous station clock in front of us, which is just it's just divine, isn't it, really? Just makes you happy. And of course, none of this is really chased. I was a kid, so I've kind of had my whole life coming in, checking the time. Because it's usually running late, has to be said. The old tea shop, now Costa. It's been sort of a rather charming old tea shop, but not quite as charming now, but still there at least. So this way we're heading towards the north, and the other way behind us to the south. So all day long you've got trains coming here from running in between Scotland and London, passing down through Catherine's area, County Durham, on the way. And this station here was designed by a guy called William Prosser, who also designed Durham Station, Harrogate Station, a good number of the LENR stations, and he was sort of seen as an absolute kind of master craftsman in terms of his design. And it's kind of indoor-outdoor sort of station insofar as the exoskeleton that you sort of see in the roof like an armadillo gives us a sense of being sort of within, but really you're kind of outside all the time. So it's a covered up bit of the outside, if that kind of makes sense, rather than being truly indoors. But so I thought it was really nice this year when William Milner was given the accolade of having the hotel next door named after him. So I think, is that lovely? It was a surprise. It wasn't something that I was aware was going to happen. So that's kind of interesting development, that just a kind of regular guy doing his job, trying to protect people, keep them safe, has been given that accolade. And I guess, you know, in this time of uncertainty and terrorist attacks and all this, that and the other, you know, it is the people like William Milner that doing their best to keep us safe kind of earn these accolades, really. So well done for him. Good for him. Linda, of course, having flashbacks there of Harry Potter wanting to go back now and freeze the moment on the DVD. And I go, I was there! But there's lots of spotting. If you are a Harry aficionado, there's lots and lots to see in this part of the world. And we took Linda and Al, when they were with our friends from New York, up to Hogsmeade Station, which is otherwise known as... oh God, my brain's terrible today. It's up on the North Yorkshire Moors, just near Whitby. And it'll come to me in just a moment. But yeah, if you're a Harry spotter, location-wise, Durham Cathedral was used up near Catherine. The cloisters there, so lots and lots to see, lots of love for Potter on here, and of course York is well, it's not synonymous. It's not related to the writing of the books. It's certainly developed a Harry Potter industry off the back of it, so we're very pleased with that. So yeah, that's good. So we're coming to the end of the station now. It's one of the longest platforms in Europe, this station, which is going somehow. So obviously you get the big long trains coming through train. So, you know, basically trains coming through, heading south towards London, going north towards Edinburgh and the northeast, will kind of pass through here. So this is a bridge over here, which has become a favourite. It used to be a bit of a grotty bridge, really, but I think they've done a fantastic job on renovating it. And so consequently, it's now something sort of worthy of our attention. And it does give us a nice view over the river, which is always nice. And I think we'll come down that side and have a walk down by the river, and pop into town and see what's happening down there. As long as it's not too messy with drunks and of course, unfortunately, these days the young ladies are every bit as bad in terms of behaviour as the young gentlemen for drinking to excess and making nuisance of themselves. Not that any of us would have done that in our era, of course. So we're all abstemious, upright citizens, and we can all sit in judgment and boo them, can't we? we can all throw stones in our glass houses on that particular one. So yeah, and this is lovely, some lovely wild pink flowers just down there, just to ping that over so you can just get a little shot. Ladies of negotiable affections, yes, absolutely, yes. If you negotiate, you can definitely get the outcome that you're seeking. So Royal Mail Vans is the sorting office here. So anybody's ever sent me letters or parcels or anything to York, they'll go on there first. So where our posties work from. So yeah, Skye Bridge was a railway bridge, never been a road bridge. And it links, obviously, the station on this side to Bootham, or the rear of Bootham on the other side. And we've then got Goathland, that's it, Cathy's on it, where I'm being hopeless today. Got the memory of a goldfish. Thankfully, we've got an attentive audience that is able to fill in the gaps. Think of it as participation. Do it as a quiz. What are the 10 things that I've forgotten today? Now, look at that. I've got to just zoom into that because that has got to be the most fantabulous name for a boat ever. It is. Can we see? It's the Hetty Pegler. Now, what a name that is. How can we not love a boat that is called the Hetty Pegler? I am powerless in the power of the Pegler. So here we are, down by the river. Hello, Cynthia. Looking across to Lendl Bridge in front of us. Isn't it lovely, Marlon? It's a real nice vantage point. A useful kind of cut through if you're living this side of the city as well, for commuting to the station and so forth. But just a really nice perspective on York from the bridges. Lendl is a comparatively modern bridge, sort of third quarter of Victorian era. In fact, one of the most famous Victorian was here, which was, thank you, Cynthia, it's very nice to say so, was Florence Nightingale. But when she visited York, she took a ferry across the river here, and the ferry would go from where we now is the Perky Peacock, in the Barker Tower that we'll have seen, or we'll see from the side of the river, as we walk down, to this side of the river. So that's how you cross the river in those days. So isn't that a nice shot of York? Sky looking lovely, lovely and green, peaceful. Yeah, I think you should. I think you need to diversify, Marlene, and ensure that you're covering all boats, as you might say. Isn't it just divine? We are so lucky in York to live somewhere that is Hetty Peglers for sale. Have a whip round, let's see what we get. But pay me tips first, just to be clear. Sorry, that's a bit naughty, isn't it? But perhaps we can do both if you're feeling excessively generous. So yeah, Bootham is sort of up that way. We should head down to Bootham Bar, and obviously the next of the sort of city bars. But we are coming off the high ground. They go high and we go low. Isn't that what Michelle Obama said? So what you're looking at here, by the way, obviously it's been done up, but it's been done up in response to a challenge, which is flooding. So as you will no doubt know and picked up by now, because I bang on about it so much, York has got a significant flood challenge. Being this is the Romans, so we're not going to go anywhere soon. So these properties were last hit, I think, in 2016. So you can see we've got some very substantial floodgates now in place. And all these properties kind of on this road down here, which are sort of delightful, but as you can see, have got within their front gardens, they're integrated now, flood defences. So no sandbags for them. They simply close the gates and hopefully just wait for the flooding to be over. Should we drop down to the Riverside? I think we'll do that, because give you a little bit more. And you see Hetty Pegler close up. There's reason enough. So should we get? Well, no, I'm not doing it, because they might be inside, might be doing no good. Imagine that. Appearing on the internet, in flagrante, as you might say. So we'll say at a distance, and Polly said, no, we're a little bit past flooding now. So a couple of months back, February, March, we get a lot, and then to October, November, December, the kind of the big wet months really. So we're a little bit past that now. So hopefully, touch wood, we're kind of done for the year. But isn't that pretty? Isn't that a lovely shot? Anybody else live in a city that floods? It's just part and parcel. I mean, if you look down here, you also got sandy beach, see, because there's always so much mud that's kind of coming up when the water comes down, and it comes down and dries. It dries in the sun. So we have these little impromptu beaches, which is kind of cute. But it's just life in York, really. It's twas ever thus, as you might say. And if you look, it's all the same colour, isn't it? You know, like the stone, the pebbles here, you know, the York stone. It all just kind of blends into one sort of rather agreeable kind of tone, which I like a lot. There's a British flag. So did anybody do anything for VED? Anybody get involved in any celebrations? Do let us know in the comments if you went to a party or event or got dressed up or did anything worthy of note for a VE Day. Of course, for those that don't know, VE Day, the Victory in Europe Day, of course in 1945, which was after the suicide of Hitler, when the German High Command formally surrendered. So obviously a huge day in the history of mankind. So I think we'll have a walk down. So this is where, if you remember, when we do the art market, I always love doing those tours in August. They're all displayed. I'm just going to get a bit dry, so I'm just going to get a little drink. What's the King's Speech? Oh, very, very well. Colin Firth, isn't it? And Geoffrey Rush, is it? The Australian actor? Very good. Enjoyed that great. I've seen it a couple of times. That was a really good movie. So yeah, this is where we have the art market. Our little Parisian left bank wannabes, but absolutely delightful. May for Liberation Day, May the 6th, my 50th of July. Oh, thank you, Natalie, for. And I'm trying to think that, I mean, obviously the Netherlands would have been liberated a good deal early, wouldn't it? Operation Market Garden and so forth, is that right? It was July 44, around then, because obviously then there was the Arnhem, wasn't there, and that sort of campaign. So I think, do let me know, I can't exactly remember when the Netherlands was liberated, but I think, so Hospitium there, in the gardens. The gardens are shut now, they're shut at 6, so we can't pop in the garden, which is a shame, but there we go. Should have been till 8 really on a weekend, shouldn't they? And I think it's summer evenings, seems very early. 6 o'clock, but I get it, there's pressure on staff and so forth, staffing budgets. So instead we'll walk parallel to the gardens, and so Andrew went to Coventry, visited the Blitz Museum. Well, obviously they took a huge hit, Andrew, didn't they? Coventry was one of, sort of Birmingham and London, of course. These were cities that took sort of tremendous poundings because they were so closely associated with kind of arms manufacturing and so forth. So consequently, they were very much the target of the more strategic bombing of the Luftwaffe rather than the kind of the retributive bombing, as you might say, that occurred in York in April 1942. Oh, is that sweet? You guys still send 100,000 tulip bulbs every year to the Netherlands and Canada to appreciation. Well, isn't that fantastic? Isn't that fantastic that the subsequent generations have recognised the role, the sacrifice, the cost of the great Canadian nation, and long may it remain a nation on its 51st state nonsense, in helping its friends around the world. And that's ultimately what we need, isn't it? Is friends and allies we can trust, not friends and allies that want to send us a bill after we've supported them, or they supported us. Which, a bit rich, but don't get me onto Trump. It's too nice a day to allow it to be poisoned by that odious man and his ridiculous ideas on diplomacy and international friendship. He's a disgrace. But anyway, enough of him. So we're walking down Dame Judi Dench Way now. Or I think that starts maybe just by the restaurant here, which is it's a lovely tribute, of course. And Judi Dench has sort of, as the years have gone by, has become more and more sort of internationally recognised and famous. Not least, of course, being M. Is it M in the James Bond franchise? The kind of franchise refuses to die. So consequently, she's now kind of globally recognised. She's a dame, one of the great actresses of the second half of the sort of 20th century and onwards. And she was born here in York. So it's lovely that she's now got that tribute in her name. And the bridge going, it's the Lendl Bridge we're going across now. So this is where Florence Nightingale would have got a ferry kind of to and from. So departing from Barker Tower, just in the sort of centre you picture now, and coming across to Lendl Tower. So as I say, before there was a bridge, over here there was a ferry. And as we know, Florence Nightingale came, and Florence Nightingale was quite a celebrity in her day. She was obviously very famous for really inspiring sort of hygiene in the treatment. Well, Marlene know about this because she really kind of was a game changer when she was sent to Sebastopol in the Battle of Crimea. So again in the news for all different reasons, but trying to liberate Crimea at the time. There was more soldiers that were dying from hospital-borne infections, which were their injuries rather than the injuries themselves. And so basically, Florence Nightingale sort of went over there as like the chief nurse, and as Marlene says, organised profession, the first kind of really truly professional matron, and recognised that sterile dressings, keeping clean, trying to create environments where you could manage the risk of infection were key. And to do so, she did something really interesting. She did a presentation to the British High Command to say, look, you've got to act on this, because this is a proportion of people that are dying of their wounds, and this is a proportion of people that are dying from hospital-borne infections. And to get her point across, she invented what has become probably the most visibly shared mathematical diagram of all time, the pie chart. Isn't that brilliant that Florence Nightingale invented the pie chart? Really, just like, but that's how she was able to get over to the British Military High Command the problem they had, and also the number of lives they could save of their trained warriors, if indeed, of course, they were able to stem the flow of losses related to hospital-borne infection. So what a trooper she was. And as Marlena says, she's really the first of the profession, first dietitians, absolutely. You know, so you've got a wholly remarkable woman. So by the time she came to York, she was a kind of a renowned kind of celebrity. And so, you know, it was marked with her visits. That's why we know she got the ferry across the river there. So we'll have a little walk up towards the Minster. We have a little look at Stonegate, see how we're getting on. 25 minutes, so not in too bad. Hopefully enjoying this meander. No real kind of focus as such to this tour, other than just to reconnect. It's been a while. We were in Amiens. If you've not seen that tour yet, do watch that. I really enjoyed that. The water gardens at Amiens. So we've got St Leonard's Hospital there, the old medieval hospital. As we're talking about hospitals, but that's not to be kind of confused with the modern hospital, insofar as the we'll go over actually. It's quite busy down here, so this hospital was run by Augustinian monks. So it was funded by the wealthy, part of the church, and people would come here for what are now called palliative care, so end of life care. But it wasn't sort of post-operative surgical care. It wasn't really about treating disease and so forth. It was more about preparation for the journey to the next life. Because if we think about the kind of the medieval kind of mindset, it's a society that is utterly dominated by the Catholic faith. Okay, so what the Pope, if we think the Pope's significant getting elected now, gee, you know, the Pope then was literally God on earth. So everybody was taking their instruction from the Pope. So consequently, this was a place where you'd come for care, but it was more about keeping you comfortable. So like a hospice, I guess. But it was about preparation, about prayer. So praying with monks about making that transition from this life to the next. So that was St Leonard's Hospital. It was the largest medieval hospital in the north of England. We know from the footprint and plans and so forth that it went kind of 2 rows beyond us here. So where the Theatre Royal is on the other side of there, there's the sort of front part of the hospital. Hello, Anna. So you've got a kind of real substantial presence here. About 200 people at any given time receive their end-of-life care here, knowing that they would die, but not being afraid of death, seeing it as simply, you know, the next stage of the journey. Because in order to kind of understand the medieval mindset, the people that both funded these works, John Romanus, a great sort of what do you call him now, entrepreneur, and God, my words aren't coming today. People that give things away. And the people who received treatment here, it was about demonstrating their piety, because the whole focus of this life was about achieving salvation in the next. So, sorry to get some more water here. They are lovely ruins, actually. Marlene, shame we can't go into them properly, but unfortunately the gates at both sides are kind of closed, so that's the best I can do to show you. But they were, of course, pulled down by Henry VIII's henchmen with the abolition of the monasteries, as part of obviously St Mary's Abbey, which is a few hundred yards down the bottom of the museum gardens. So it's kind of the same setup, but that was run by Augustinians, whereas at St Mary's Abbey was run by Benedictines. So monks taking different codes, different saints inspiring them, and their kind of codes of behaviour. Benedictines were the more sort of common, so there's more of those in York. But all the orders actually here in York, one time or another. Cistercians, Franciscans, Benedictines, Dominicans, Carmelites, you name it, York had it. Because of course it was this central part of faith. So going back to our story where we kind of started, you know, and we're talking about, you know, York being this kind of second most important. Well, that was echoed in faith and Christianity as well. Because whilst York, as part of the Roman Empire, had been part of the Holy Roman Empire, when the Romans upped and left at the beginning of the 5th century, they in effect took Christianity with them. And so the people that settled here subsequently come across the North Sea, people we now call the Anglo-Saxons. had a very different mindset. We call it pagan, and I know Marlena is very, very interested in kind of pagan belief systems, but pagan is a very, very broad brushstroke, as I'm sure she'd agree, insofar as it really describes what it's not, which of course is not Christian, rather than what it actually is. And so the significant variations of belief systems, you know, that were kind of in and around sort of Central Europe at that time. So they're kind of outside that, but obviously once Pope of the day decides, Pope Sylvester, I believe, decides that, no, Gregory, I do beg your pardon, Gregory the First, at the beginning of the 7th century, that they want to bring the British Isles back into Christendom, then he sends out his envoys to kind of begin the reconversion process. And in the north, that is a monk of Irish monks from Iona that come over and eventually hit pay dirt in the year of 627, when King Edwin of Northumbria, who is the king of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Northumbria, converts on his wedding day. He's marrying the daughter of the King of Kent, who's a Christian, so she can't marry a pagan. So he converts on Easter Day 627, and a small stone church is built on this site to commemorate, which of course is York Minster. So in 2 years from now, we have the 1,400th year anniversary of the establishment of the Minster. So what a fantastic time to come to York, the sun glowing, the blue sky. Hopefully you're getting this in nice, sharp, high definition. I only ever tour in 1080 HD, which I think is a lot better than rubbish 720. So hopefully we're coming close to the Minster. You start to get some of the stunning visuals you're able to do so. Thank you, Lynn, that's so kind. Somebody's birthdays, happy birthday. I apologise, didn't see who that was. The chat at times either hurtles past or it's on a part of the screen where I can't easily make it out from the blue sky. So I do apologise. Hello there. I do apologise that I can't always see everything's written down. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a little walk alongside the Minster. We've got the Minster Gardens. They're kind of nice, wouldn't it? Kind of nice. So that's interesting, of course, you know, that I think what's interesting, Marlene, is for people of strong belief, for people of no belief, it works. Oh yeah, let's go in the gardens because Paddington's there. I'm not sure any Paddington on tour. I think he's somewhere in there, unless he's been moved. So if people are kind of where faith is a central principle in their life, for people that are more questioning, unsure, and for people that have no faith whatsoever, they can still admire greatly. Oh, the bell's ringing for us. Sure, I'm just in time for the bells. We can hear the bell. So we'll have a walk down the gardens. If you haven't already checked them out, have a look on my Facebook page at the fabulous Amiens Cathedral. So if you remember what I was saying about Amiens Cathedral is, we think of this as being pretty well decorated, but by comparison, it is plain Jane. It's got almost nothing going on visually compared to Amiens Cathedral. So it's kind of interesting, these different kind of renderings of kind of Christian worship building. What York does, of course, is once it sacrifices some of the external decorations, or something that will have been stripped off by the Reformation, in exchange it goes for size. It's bigger, it's higher, it's wider. So consequently, you've yeah, I ordered that, Fran. Thank you for noticing. So you know, this is why the cathedrals of Europe are kind of worth visiting, you know, en masse, as many as you can, because there's so much difference in the kind of look and the feel, and that's because obviously subsequent archbishops and their kind of wealthy patrons were looking to, you know, put their stamp on what could be sort of seen as a cathedral. There was no one template. A lot of similarities. Oh, there's also these green things in here. I'll have to come and do a tour and sort of see them, but I'm not sure they're exciting enough to. So, the statue of the Queen, I'll just show you, just over here, just on the front, just slightly to the right-hand side of the west entrance. So we'll bring you just down there to show you that before we go in the gardens and see if we can find a certain bear. I should say bears is extra. If anybody remembers the Paddington story, it's in the very first book, in the very first story where they find Paddington, and of course Paddington Station, which is where he gets his name, And having created mayhem in the tea shop because he was rather hungry, he then obviously helps himself to a sandwich from under his hat, a marmalade sandwich. Just try and give you a bit of zoom on that. There you go. There's the Queen. Still quite a sort of difference in colour to the main fabric of the Minster, but give her another few years and she'll be blending in like a good one. Oh. So yeah, Paddington. So the Brown family, who of course are going to adopt Paddington, they don't know it yet, but they're just taking him home. Put him in a taxi, and when I love the line, excuse me, the taxi driver looks around, grumbles, and says, "Bears is extra," which is wonderful. The idea they've got a tariff for bears in taxis. So, again, let me just take a sip. I'm getting really dry throat tonight, so not ideal. And I'm looking for Paddington. I haven't seen him just yet, but I believe he's in here. So, we'll keep him peeled. If you see any bears, do of course let us know. Wherever he may be, I'm not entirely sure. But we'll keep him peeled. Ah, here he is. So, first time on one of my tours. Here he is, little chap with, it says, "Please look after this bear." It just seems that people are trying to look after him now, don't they? In terms of the way he's kind of portrayed in films and so forth. He's definitely being looked after, I think, by his legacy. So famously written in the 1950s by a chap called Michael Bond. Became a favourite. And of course he's there, his sandwich look dripping with marmalade. And of course, if you haven't seen it, do have a look on YouTube. It'll still be up there, I'm sure. The lovely thing for the Queen's Jubilee, which is about a year or two before she died, where he offers her a marmalade sandwich, and it reveals that she has a marmalade sandwich in her bag as well, which is lovely, isn't it? You know, we all want to imagine the late Queen feasting when no one was looking on a marmalade sandwich in a bag. So again, let's look at the quality of the light here. It was wonderful, wasn't it, Marlene? So again, we'll just pan across. Give you a central tower of the north side and the twin west towers of York Minster. I love the way the light is cascading there. So let's onwards and upwards. I think we'll have a little walk down what a Goodrum Gate. The Shambles, unfortunately, isn't great to go to today. I know you guys are all addicted to the Shambles, but unfortunately, the scaffolding up, so it's not great. So I think we'll do Stonegate instead. And Stonegate today is going to be standing in for the Shambles. So it's very desirable. Paddington's so cute. Luan, hello there, Luan, didn't know you were on. Yeah, he's like, isn't he? I mean, I think it was put there to promote the film. Paddington 3, would it be? Paddington 4, not quite sure where they're up to in the franchise now. But I think it's staying. I don't think there's any sense that he's a here today, gone tomorrow kind of bear. He is, I think, part of the fabric now. He's appearing on many an Instagram post, Facebook post. So I think that it's likely. She did something with James Bond with Daniel Craig. You're absolutely right, Linda, for the Olympics as well. So she made a couple of those little films, which is very cute. And well done to all those people that said, "Yeah, just do it, it'll be fun." Lovely. So Treasurer's House, as many will know, place where I got married back in 2003. God, a long time ago now. Over 20 years. So we've got a bit of a jubilee coming up soon. A couple of years, it'll be our 25th anniversary, silver. That's where we got married. Sadly not as sunny as it is today. It bucketed down. So we got absolutely soaked. And that's all our photos taken inside, which is a bit disappointing because it's a bit dark inside. It wasn't really what you kind of hope for with your wedding photos, but there we go. The picture of the Buckingham Palace dropped her, that's right. It was a parachute ride or something, I do remember. So talking about kings and queens. Queen's father, so GR. So George Rex. So Rex and Regina, of course Latin for king and queen. But I've yet to see a King Charles postbox. I don't know if such a thing exists in York. I'm sure there are in certain places. In York, I don't know. So I shall sort of look out for one of those. If there is, I'll do my best endeavours. It was a lovely place. It was just a shame about the weather. But you know, these things you can't. I mean, they say, don't they, it's lucky to get rain on your wedding day, but I think that's probably people who've had rain on their wedding day that just trying to make themselves feel better. Like selling dog poo's lucky, that sort of thing. You think, you really? I'm not entirely sure I buy into that. But oh no, I tripped over myself. So yeah, it is. And of course, on our doorstep, it's just so nice. And what's so lovely for those that have been, or even these that have been on multiple tours now, will note is all this concentrated loveliness. You haven't got bits in between that are kind of boring or pig ugly, you know, or unstimulating. You know, it's just bam, bam, bam is York. And mostly pretty flat as well, so if you've got reasonable mobility, pretty easy to get around. Not all the surfaces are as flat as they could be. And of course, you've got step ups and step downs into shops, which again is not something that's really in your kind of control. But I think, you know, within reason, most people could enjoy most of what York has to offer. And for the rest, of course, there's tours like this that give you a little fresh insight into what's going on the streets. So we're coming into the south transit. We've got Constantine statue over here on our right hand side, but he's not at his best right now because he's got scaffolding behind him. So prefer to come back to Constantine when he's no, that's fine, Linda. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for your lovely gift. That's much appreciated. And we've only got like less than 10 minutes left on this tour, so I'm sure you can jump on. Thank you, Fran. Jump on to the replay afterwards, at a time that suits you, and catch up with what you missed. And the same, of course, for anybody that didn't catch the beginning of the tour, you're able to go back. Because I believe that once it's out there, just leave it up on YouTube, and hopefully other people can see it, get involved, join the community. So I'm not into restricting things or charging for things. Others do. Please don't take that as a criticism of anybody that does. You know, we're all got our own opportunity to decide what we want to do with our kind of material. But I like doing it free and making it available, and trusting in the goodwill of people such as yourselves to say thank you as and when you're in a position to do so. And that generally works for me. So yeah, so let's have a look on Stonegate before we wrap up, because we're about 6 minutes. So Stonegate to me, absolutely delightful street in York. Probably my favourite of all the streets. It is. It takes the name Stonegate because it's used to transport stone from the river, which is up at the end, and kind of spin around. And we've got the Minster there. So transporting the heavy stonework that was going to be used for the building blocks of the Minster came right down Stonegate. So the river landing was just behind the Guildhall, and the Manchester, which is straight in front of us. So it was a thoroughfare. This was kind of important. Was you know, part of the Roman fortress. And it was like a grid pattern of the Roman fortress. The basilica was at the centre where the Minster is now. So the kind of fortress was at the centre. So where we are now, we're now kind of within the sort of the footprint, if you like, of the Roman fortress. And in fact, let's just see what it is. This is the Via Praetoria, I believe it's called. And just a sign over here. Look. So here, that's Stonegate. The Via Praetoria, the Roman fortress of Iberacum, in daily use for about 1900 years. Its name derived from the fact it was the Roman stone paved street. So we go, Stonegate. Stonegate. Abbiente, that's lovely. So quite nice and quiet today, isn't it, down here? And I think Stonegate to me is one of those streets to kind of soak up, because this is where York, for those that like to do a bit of shopping while they're kind of at leisure, you might say, it offers a kind of really different shopping experience. The shops are much smaller, so you don't get. I mean, we have got some big stores on the outskirts of York, obviously, but typically they're smaller, more likely to be independent, more kind of boutique-y, more likely to be York-owned. And so you get a lot of local produce, obviously a lot of makers, fabricators and so forth. So you see it down here, you know, we've got a Harrogate gin, tempting lovely otter face in there. So, you know, I think it makes for a really engaging experience for visiting the shops and so forth, knowing that you're dealing with kind of local produce and local businesses rather than the chains that you would get kind of everywhere. That's now, I'm not saying against chains. They, of course, have their place. But I think many of us get excited about another visit to, you know, these internationally famous, wherever you go, they are stores. They are what they are. But there's nothing really to offer a chain store in a building like this one in Mulberry Hall, dating from 1434. It, of course, is a nightmare from access point of view. It's a nightmare from probably every part of running a building, apart from the most important one, which is it's utterly stunning and beautiful. And not wanting to be involved in it is kind of, that's what I struggle with. If I had a choice, I'd choose that one for every downside that goes with it, because look at it. It is, you know, incomparable. It's like something out of a fairy tale. It's like a dream, isn't it, you know, of a child wanting to step into the pictures of your books of fairy tales. It just kind of pushes every single button that I have. Totally romantic, I know. Not at all practical, but wow, blows me out. And I just love being able to share this stuff with you. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to share kind of my York, because obviously I've lived here most of my life, really. I've been away and come back and so forth. So it's really nice to give you a personal perspective, not simply as a tour guide or historian, but just my appreciation of the city, because I think it is as good as anywhere to live. And I love to travel, love to see other places. I'm not kind of don't get a nosebleed at the thought of leaving Yorkshire, but there is so much here. Thank you, Cheryl. That I think, you know, it's great to feel I can do it in a small way, kind of ambassadorial role, bigging up York, and just reminding you that, you know, if you're thinking about overseas travel, thinking about coming to the UK, I know you're going to go to London, everybody wants to, and so you should, but just remember, when you're in London, you're 2 hours by train, and it's all here. And if you come off season, dead quiet, accommodation's a bit cheaper as well, so, you know, you've got the best of all worlds, really. September, I think, is a lovely time of year to come. So as we're near, and it's really dear to our hearts and our bellies, should we look in the window of Betty's before we call it a wrap? And yeah, well, Kathy Wolferhart, I believe, is a German brand, so probably not the best example, Andrew, of a local business, but nonetheless, certainly a business that was operating from a sublimely beautiful and probably wildly impractical building here in York, dating from the early half of the 15th century. So here we have Betty's Cafe. Tea rooms, not film people having their afternoon tea, and so that would be somewhat remiss of me. But we will have a look in the window, because it is both a shop and as well as a cafe bar, restaurant, bistro, whatever you want to call it. So let's have a look while they have two beguilers when we take time for tea. So as ever, the packaging is kind of the first thing. The visual quality of what Betty's offer is always, so those that like their flavoured teas rather than sort of straight black teas, a mandarin and ginger, peppermint over there, afternoon Darjeeling. It's a very mild tea, Darjeeling, isn't it? From a beautiful part of India, northern India. It's very cool, very wet. The hill stations of Darjeeling. A lot of teas harvested there. These, I can tell you, from past experience, are delicious. The chocolate and orange biscuits. Some Yorkshire shortbread. Little penny fours. Just delightful. Absolutely lovely. And the frogs, not quite sure what the frogs are, but I'm sure they're yummy. And we've got macarons for those that like the French style. Nathan, you're most welcome, as ever, to join me here. And the crowd as well, not just me, is it? I mean, it's everybody that contributes to making these such a warm, embracing, safe, welcoming, happy, chatty, fun places to be. So Swiss chocolate. So the Swiss link, by the way, is the guy that founded this had come over. He'd been a patisserie chef initially in Switzerland, but had moved on into Austria and the kind of the height of European sort of aristocratic society. But ended up coming over here, and Frederick Butzer, Frederick Butzer. And so he brought Swiss recipes. So we've got carrot loaf cake there, a raspberry and vanilla loaf cake, and a lemon, like a lemon drizzle cake there. So a Grand Cru Sacheteur, Swiss chocolate cake. So again, you know, flavourings that he would have been exposed to as a kind of patisserie chef and a kind of puddings guy, dessert guy, in Austria, in Vienna, in Berlin, I believe he worked as well. So before the war. So lots of yummy things, some brownies down there. Victoria sponge, absolutely delicious, and of course famously the Fat Rascal. They kind of cross between the rock bun and a scone, which is York is so famous for. So we're bang on 7, and I've got some friends coming over, so I am going to have to hit and run. It's been a real pleasure taking around York. Hopefully, the sort of very loose nature of it has been enjoyable. We had a little natter, nice to read your comments, and as ever, delightful for you to join me. And Patty, I look so forward to meeting you. A bit of England today, a bit of paganism as well, haven't we? So we can support, we can chat about that again. So thank you, Polly, everybody who's contributed. Thank you so much for that. It's most grateful. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. So from York to wherever you are, I'll say goodbye. Bye-bye.